The scent of garlic and onion sizzling in olive oil filled the kitchen as Vanessa Harper stirred the homemade pasta sauce she'd been perfecting for the past hour. She hummed softly to herself, occasionally glancing at the clock mounted on the cream-colored wall. Ethan would be home soon, and she wanted everything to be perfect. Lately, he'd been distant, coming home later than usual and barely making eye contact during dinner. Tonight, she was determined to recreate the cozy atmosphere that had somehow slipped away from their marriage over the past few months. "Mommy, is it ready yet?" 3-year-old Lily peered up from her coloring book at the kitchen table, her brown curls bouncing as she tilted her head. Her tiny fingers were stained with green and purple marker ink. "Not yet, sweetheart. Daddy will be home soon, and then we'll eat together." Vanessa smiled at her daughter, her heart swelling with love. No matter how strained things had become between her and Ethan, Lily remained their perfect creation, the undeniable proof that their love had once been real and powerful. As Vanessa reached for the wooden spoon to stir the sauce again, she heard the front door open and close. Her heart quickened. Ethan was home earlier than expected. Maybe that was a good sign. "Daddy!" Lily's excited voice echoed through the house as she abandoned her coloring and ran toward the entryway. Vanessa wiped her hands on a kitchen towel and took a deep breath, preparing her warmest smile. But when Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway with Lily clinging to his leg, the expression on his face made her smile fade instantly. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. "Lily, sweetie," Ethan said, his voice unnaturally controlled, "can you go play in your room for a bit? Daddy needs to talk to Mommy." The little girl looked between her parents, confusion clouding her innocent face, but she nodded and reluctantly headed upstairs. Vanessa felt a chill run down her spine as she watched her daughter disappear around the corner. When she turned back to Ethan, he had already sat down at the kitchen table, his shoulders tense, eyes fixed on his intertwined fingers. "What's wrong?" Vanessa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did something happen at work?" Ethan didn't look up. "We need to talk." 3 simple words that never preceded anything good. Vanessa's hand instinctively moved to her throat, her fingers pressing against her rapidly beating pulse. She lowered the heat on the stove and slowly moved to sit across from him, her legs suddenly feeling like they might give out beneath her. "Vanessa." He finally looked up, his blue eyes eerily calm. "We're getting divorced. Please don't insist. It's over." The words hung in the air between them like shattered glass. For a moment, Vanessa was certain she had misheard him. The pasta sauce continued to simmer on the stove, the scent suddenly nauseating. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. "What?" Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears, distant and hollow. "Is this some kind of joke?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I've been thinking about this for months. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers will be ready next week." "Months? Lawyer? Papers?" The words bounced around Vanessa's mind, refusing to form any coherent meaning. Her hands began to tremble as she gripped the edge of the table. "But why? What happened? What did I do?" The questions tumbled out, each one more desperate than the last. "If there's a problem, we can fix it. We can go to counseling. We can—" "There's nothing to fix, Vanessa," Ethan cut her off, his tone final. "I don't want this anymore. I don't want us." The room seemed to tilt around her. A wave of nausea rolled through her stomach as the full weight of his words began to settle. 12 years of marriage. A home built together. Their beautiful daughter sleeping upstairs. All of it dismissed with a few cruel sentences. "Is there someone else?" The question escaped her lips before she could stop it, voiced so softly it was barely audible. Ethan's eyes flickered away momentarily, a muscle in his jaw tensing. "No, this isn't about anyone else. It's about us not working anymore." But something in his quick denial, in the way he couldn't hold her gaze, told her otherwise. A cold realization washed over her, followed immediately by a searing pain in her chest. "You're lying to me." It wasn't a question this time. "Think whatever you want," he replied, standing up. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. I'll come back tomorrow to get some of my things. A hotel? You've already planned this all out? Vanessa stood too, her legs shaking beneath her. What about Lily? What am I supposed to tell our daughter? At the mention of their child, something flickered across Ethan's face. Regret, perhaps, or guilt, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. We'll tell her together. I'm not abandoning her, Vanessa. Just you. Just us. Just you. Just us. The words cut through her like physical blows. Vanessa reached for the back of a chair to steady herself, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Not yet. Not in front of him. You can keep the house, Ethan continued, his voice mechanical now, as if reciting lines he'd rehearsed. I'll pay child support, of course. We can work out visitation schedules through our lawyers. Our lawyers? Vanessa repeated, her voice rising. Yesterday we were husband and wife, and now we need lawyers to talk to each other? This isn't a sudden decision for me, he said, moving toward the door. I've been unhappy for a long time. And you never thought to mention it? To try and fix things? Anger began to rise alongside the shock and pain. What happened to, for better or for worse? What happened to our vows, Ethan? He paused at the doorway, his back to her. People change. Feelings change. I'm sorry. Please, she whispered, hating how desperate she sounded, but unable to stop herself. Please don't do this. Think about Lily. If not for me, then for her. She'll still have both of us, just not together. He turned slightly, his profile outlined in the hallway light. This is better than raising her in a home without love. Without love? The pasta sauce began to burn on the stove, filling the kitchen with an acrid smell that matched the bitterness flooding Vanessa's heart. I still love you, she said, her voice breaking. But I don't love you anymore, Ethan replied, and with those final, devastating words, he walked out of the kitchen. Vanessa stood frozen, listening as he climbed the stairs, presumably to say goodbye to Lily. A few minutes later, she heard the front door close. It wasn't until the sound of his car engine faded away that her legs finally gave out, and she slid to the kitchen floor. The tears came then, violent and uncontrollable. Sobs racked her body as she curled into herself, arms wrapped tightly around her middle, as if trying to physically hold herself together. This couldn't be happening. Not to them. Not to their family. Mommy? Lily's small voice cut through Vanessa's anguish. She looked up to find her daughter standing in the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Why are you crying? Where did Daddy go? With tremendous effort, Vanessa wiped her tears and opened her arms. Come here, baby. Lily ran into her embrace, and Vanessa held her daughter close, breathing in the sweet scent of her strawberry shampoo. Daddy had to go out for a while, but he said goodnight. Is he coming back for breakfast? Lily asked, her innocent question sending a fresh wave of pain through Vanessa's heart. We'll talk about that tomorrow, Vanessa managed, stroking her daughter's hair. Are you hungry? The pasta is ready. The thought of food made her stomach turn, but she had to be strong for Lily. She had to maintain some semblance of normalcy, while her entire world crumbled around her. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Vanessa sat alone in the dark living room, her mind replaying Ethan's words over and over. She tried calling him, but her calls went straight to voicemail. She sent text messages that remained unread. By 3 a.m, exhaustion finally overcame her, and she fell into a fitful sleep on the couch, still wearing her dinner preparation clothes, the smell of burnt pasta sauce clinging to her like a cruel reminder of how quickly life could change. When morning came, Vanessa woke with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. For one blissful moment, she didn't remember. Then reality crashed back, and the pain returned with such intensity that she gasped aloud. Somehow, she had to get up. She had to face Lily. She had to figure out what came next in this nightmare. As she forced herself to stand, catching a glimpse of her reflection in the hallway mirror, disheveled hair, red-rimmed eyes, pale face. One thought kept repeating in her mind: how could he throw away 12 years like they meant nothing? And more importantly, what had she missed? What signs had she failed to see that could have prepared her for this devastation? The sound of Lily stirring upstairs pulled Vanessa back to the present. She had no answers, only questions that burned in her throat. But she had a 3-year-old who needed her mother, divorced or not. Taking a deep breath, Vanessa straightened her shoulders and headed upstairs. One step at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. That was all she could manage now. But deep down, beneath the shock and pain, a tiny spark of something else flickered to life. A determination not to be broken by this, not completely. She didn't know how, but somehow she would find a way through the darkness Ethan had thrust upon her. She had to, for Lily, for herself. The next week passed in a blur of sleepless nights and mechanical days. Vanessa moved through her routine like a ghost in her own life, preparing Lily's breakfast, dropping her at preschool, working remotely as a graphic designer, picking Lily up, making dinner, reading bedtime stories. Each task was performed with precision but without presence, her mind constantly circling back to the same questions. Why? When did he stop loving me? What happens now? True to his word, Ethan had returned the following day to collect some clothes and personal items. The conversation had been brief and clinical, with Lily mercifully at Eleanor's house to shield her from the tension. When Vanessa had tried once more to understand, to beg for an explanation, Ethan had simply shaken his head. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be," he'd said, zipping his suitcase closed. "I'll come by this weekend to see Lily." Now, 7 days after her world had imploded, Vanessa sat in her attorney's office, staring blankly at the divorce papers in front of her. Nancy Weber, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, watched her with professional sympathy. "You don't have to sign today," Nancy said gently. "Take them home. Read through everything. The financial terms are fairly standard. He's giving you the house, offering generous child support, and proposing joint custody with Lily, spending weekdays with you and alternate weekends with him. He's already figured it all out," Vanessa murmured, running her finger along the edge of the document. "Like he's been planning his escape for months." Nancy leaned forward. "Vanessa, I need to ask, and please be honest, is there any chance of reconciliation here? Sometimes people file for divorce as a wake-up call, a way to force changes in a relationship." Vanessa's throat tightened as she shook her head. "He says it's over, that he doesn't love me anymore." The words still burned like acid on her tongue. "And there's someone else. He denies it, but I can tell." The attorney nodded, making a note. "If infidelity is involved and you can prove it, we could potentially negotiate better terms." "I don't care about better terms," Vanessa said, surprising herself with the sudden flare of anger in her voice. "I care about my daughter growing up with both parents in the same house. I care about not having my entire life destroyed because he's having a midlife crisis or whatever this is." As the words hung in the air, her cell phone rang. Checking the screen, Vanessa felt a jolt of surprise. It was Connor, Ethan's older brother. They had always been friendly, but he rarely called her directly. "I'm sorry, I should take this," she told Nancy, who nodded understanding. "Vanessa? It's Connor." His deep voice sounded strained. "I just heard from my mother about Ethan and I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Is Lily okay?" The genuine concern in his voice cracked something inside her. For the first time since Ethan's announcement, someone was asking how she was, not what she was going to do. She began, then stopped, unable to say fine when they were anything but. "We're surviving. I'm in town for a conference. Would it be all right if I stopped by later? I'd like to see you both, if that's okay." Vanessa hesitated. Connor had always been the more serious of the Harper brothers, more thoughtful, more stable. Unlike Ethan, who charged through life with charismatic energy, Connor moved with careful consideration. The brothers were close despite their differences, making his call even more surprising. "Yes, "That would be nice," she finally said. Lily would love to see her uncle. After ending the call and finishing her meeting with Nancy, Vanessa drove home in a daze. The autumn leaves were beginning to turn, painting the suburban neighborhood in fiery oranges and reds that seemed to mock her bleak mood. How could the world look so beautiful when everything inside her felt so broken? At home, she busied herself with cleaning, a desperate attempt to control something in her unraveling life. She was scrubbing the kitchen counter with unnecessary force when the doorbell rang at 4:30. Connor stood on the porch, his tall frame slightly hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. At 38, he was the spitting image of what Ethan would look like in a few years. Same strong jawline and deep-set eyes, though Connor's were a warmer brown compared to Ethan's piercing blue. He'd always kept his dark hair shorter than his brother's, and today it showed flecks of early gray at the temples. "Hey," he said simply, his eyes scanning her face with concern. "Hey," she echoed, stepping aside to let him in. As he passed, she caught the familiar scent of the Harper family cologne, a detail so unexpectedly painful that she had to take a steadying breath. "Where's the little one?" Connor asked, looking around the quiet house. "Taking a nap. She should be up soon." Vanessa led him to the kitchen. "Coffee? Please." They moved in awkward silence as Vanessa prepared the coffee. This man had been her brother-in-law for 12 years, a fixture at family gatherings and holidays, yet suddenly they were like strangers, the comfortable familiarity shattered by Ethan's actions. "I had no idea," Connor finally said, accepting the mug she offered. "Mom called me yesterday, completely shocked. She said Ethan told them on Sunday, but gave no real explanation." He paused, studying her. "Vanessa, what happened?" The simple question, asked with such genuine bewilderment, nearly undid her. She sank into a chair across from him, cradling her own mug for warmth. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He came home last Tuesday, sat down at this very table, and told me it was over, that he'd been unhappy for months and wanted a divorce." She swallowed hard. He had already talked to a lawyer. Connor's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound like Ethan." "Doesn't it?" Vanessa looked up, meeting his gaze. "Because I've been replaying our entire marriage in my head, trying to see the signs I missed, and maybe this is exactly who he is. Maybe I never really knew him at all." Her words hung between them, raw and painful. Connor reached across the table, hesitating before gently covering her hand with his own. "I've known my brother his entire life," he said quietly. "And this isn't him. Something else is going on." The touch of his hand, warm and steady on hers, was the first real comfort Vanessa had felt in days. She allowed it for a moment before gently pulling away, uncomfortable with how desperately she craved the connection. "I asked if there was someone else," she said, staring into her coffee. "He denied it, but you don't believe him," Connor finished for her. She shook her head. "You didn't see his face when I asked. The way he couldn't look at me." Connor sat back, running a hand over his face. "Have you noticed anything else unusual lately? Changes in his behavior or routine?" Vanessa considered this. "He's been working later, checking his phone constantly, taking calls in another room. The usual cliches, I guess." She gave a bitter laugh. "I just thought he was busy with work. His company is expanding to the West Coast, and he's been stressed about it." "Uncle Connor!" Lily's excited voice interrupted as she bounded into the kitchen, her nap-tousled hair flying behind her. Connor's face transformed, breaking into a warm smile as he opened his arms to catch her. "There's my favorite niece," he said, lifting her onto his lap. "I missed you, kiddo." "Did you bring me a present?" Lily asked, with the directness only a 3-year-old could manage. Connor laughed, reaching into his jacket pocket. "As a matter of fact, I did." He produced a small stuffed owl with huge, glittering eyes. "I saw this little guy and thought of you." Lily squealed with delight, clutching the owl to her chest. "I'm going to name him Hoot." "Perfect name," Connor agreed, shooting an apologetic glance at Vanessa, who simply shook her head with a small smile. Spoiling Lily was a family tradition on both sides. "Where's Daddy?" Lily asked suddenly, looking around as if expecting Ethan to materialize. "Is he coming for dinner too?" The innocent question pierced Vanessa's heart. She and Ethan had tried to explain the situation to Lily, using simple terms about Daddy living in a different house now. But the concept of divorce was beyond a 3-year-old's understanding. "Not tonight, sweetheart," Connor answered smoothly, saving Vanessa from responding. "But how about I stay for dinner instead? Would that be okay?" Lily considered this, then nodded. "Can we have pizza?" "That," Connor said solemnly, "sounds like an excellent plan." As Lily chattered about her day at preschool, Vanessa watched the easy interaction between uncle and niece. Connor had always been good with Lily, but as the childless uncle who lived in Chicago and visited a few times a year, their relationship had necessarily been limited. Now, seeing him engage with her daughter with such natural warmth, Vanessa felt a complex mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. The evening passed with surprising ease. Connor ordered pizza, helped Lily build a fort in the living room, and even assisted with bath time, reading 3 stories in different voices that had Lily giggling uncontrollably. By the time they tucked her in, Vanessa realized she had smiled more in the past few hours than she had all week. "Thank you," she said simply, as they descended the stairs. She needed this. A normal evening with laughter. Connor shrugged. "It was selfish, really. I needed it too." He paused at the bottom of the stairs. "I'm staying in town for another 3 days. Would it be okay if I came by again tomorrow? Maybe I could take Lily to the park or something." Vanessa hesitated, wary of creating a routine that would inevitably be disrupted when Connor returned to Chicago. But Lily's delighted face from earlier flashed in her mind. "She would love that," Vanessa said. "And honestly, I could use the time to deal with some paperwork." The divorce documents sat untouched in her bag, a weight she couldn't yet bear to confront. Connor nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'll come by around 10, if that works." After he left, Vanessa locked up and wandered through the quiet house, the day's events swirling in her mind. The familiar ache of Ethan's betrayal remained, but alongside it was a new feeling, a fragile gratitude for Connor's unexpected support. As she prepared for bed, her phone pinged with a text message. It was from Ethan. "I'll pick Lily up at 10 on Saturday. We need to talk about the papers." Just like that, the brief respite evaporated. The reality of her situation crashed back. She was still a woman whose husband had discarded her without explanation. Still a mother trying to protect her daughter from the fallout. Still standing at the edge of an abyss with no idea how to find solid ground. Yet, as she curled up in the bed that felt too large without Ethan beside her, Vanessa found herself thinking not of her husband's cryptic message, but of Connor's kind eyes and the way he had made Lily laugh. For the first time in days, he fell asleep without crying. The stuffed owl he'd brought perched watchfully on Lily's nightstand across the hall. Saturday morning arrived with a knot of anxiety in Vanessa's stomach. She'd spent an hour carefully packing Lily's overnight bag. Extra clothes, her favorite pajamas, the new stuffed owl that hadn't left her side since Connor's visit, and detailed notes about Lily's routine that Ethan should already know, but might have forgotten in his rush to dismantle their life together. "Is Daddy taking me to the aquarium?" Lily asked, as Vanessa braided her hair, tiny legs swinging beneath the kitchen stool. Vanessa secured the braid with a purple elastic. "I'm not sure, sweetie. You can ask him when he gets here." The past 3 days had brought an unexpected rhythm to their fractured life. True to his word, Connor had come by each morning, taking Lily to the park, the children's museum, and yesterday, the local duck pond. While they were gone, Vanessa had forced herself to address the practical matters that divorce entailed, meeting with her attorney again, starting the process of separating finances, and researching how to help young children through parental separation. Each afternoon, Connor and Lily would return, her daughter's cheeks flushed with excitement, eager to tell Vanessa about their adventures. Twice, Connor had stayed for dinner, filling the house with a warmth that had been missing since Ethan's departure. His presence was becoming a comfort. Vanessa tried not to examine too closely. The doorbell rang at precisely 10 o'clock. Lily raced to the door, her small body vibrating with excitement at seeing her father. Vanessa followed more slowly, steeling herself for the confrontation. Ethan stood on the porch wearing jeans and a casual button-down, the outfit he reserved for weekend outings with Lily. His hair was freshly cut, his face cleanly shaved. He looked good, rested. The observation sent a spike of bitterness through Vanessa's heart. "Daddy!" Lily launched herself at his legs, and Ethan's face softened as he bent to scoop her up. "There's my girl," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I missed you so much." Vanessa handed him the overnight bag, careful to avoid touching his fingers. "Everything she needs is in there. She's been asking about the aquarium." Ethan nodded, shifting Lily to his hip. "That's the plan." His eyes moved past Vanessa to the interior of the house, then back to her face. "Can we talk for a few minutes? About the papers?" "Lily, honey, why don't you go get Hoot?" "I don't think we packed him," Vanessa suggested, though she knew the owl was safely tucked in the side pocket of the bag. When Lily had scampered off, Ethan's eyebrows rose. "Hoot? The stuffed owl your brother gave her," Vanessa replied, crossing her arms. "Connor's been helping out this week." Something flickered across Ethan's face. Surprise, followed quickly by what looked like suspicion. "Connor's been here? He's in town for a conference. He's been taking Lily out so I can deal with the mess you've made of our lives." The words came out sharper than she intended, but Vanessa couldn't bring herself to regret them. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I thought he was in Chicago until next month." "Plans change," Vanessa said coolly. "Kind of like marriage vows, apparently." Before Ethan could respond, Lily returned, clutching the owl. "I found him, Mommy." "Good job, sweetie." Vanessa knelt to hug her daughter, inhaling her baby shampoo scent. "Have fun with Daddy, okay? I'll see you tomorrow night." After they left, Vanessa stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching Ethan buckle Lily into her car seat with practiced ease. How many times had she witnessed this exact scene? How many family outings had begun just this way? The familiar tableau now felt like a cruel parody of their former life. Back inside, the house seemed impossibly quiet. Vanessa wandered from room to room, picking up Lily's scattered toys more to occupy her hands than from any real desire for order. When the doorbell rang again 2 hours later, she assumed Ethan had forgotten something. Instead, Connor stood on the porch, holding a paper bag that smelled tantalizingly of fresh bread. "I thought you might not have eaten," he said by way of greeting. "And I remembered you like that bakery downtown." Vanessa stared at him for a beat too long, caught off guard by the thoughtful gesture. "You didn't have to do that," he shrugged. "I was passing by anyway." This was clearly a lie. The bakery was nowhere near his hotel, but Vanessa found herself smiling despite herself. "Well, I haven't eaten," she admitted, stepping aside to let him in. "And their sandwiches are the best in town." They ate at the kitchen island, Connor filling the silence with stories about his architectural firm in Chicago and a challenging client who wanted to build what amounted to a modern castle. His animated descriptions made Vanessa laugh, a sound that felt foreign in her throat after days of suppressed tears. "It's good to hear you laugh," Connor said softly when they had finished eating. "I've been worried about you." Vanessa busied herself with clearing the wrappers, uncomfortable with the sudden intensity in his gaze. "I'm managing one day at a time, right?" "Vanessa." His voice drew her eyes back to his face. "You don't have to be strong all the time. Not with me." The simple permission to be broken, to be angry, to be afraid, was her undoing. Tears she'd been fighting all morning welled up and spilled over before she could stop them. "I don't understand," she whispered, the words catching on a sob. 12 years, 12 years, and he throws it away like it meant nothing, like I meant nothing. Connor moved around the island, hesitating before gently pulling her into his arms. Vanessa stiffened momentarily, then melted into the embrace, her tears soaking the front of his shirt. He held her silently, one hand making soothing circles on her back, until the storm of emotion began to subside. "I'm sorry," she said, pulling away and wiping her cheeks. "Your shirt is a mess." "It's just a shirt," he replied simply, keeping his hands lightly on her upper arms. "And you have nothing to be sorry for." Looking up at him, at the genuine concern in his eyes, so similar to Ethan's yet somehow deeper, steadier, Vanessa felt a confusing flutter of something she wasn't ready to acknowledge. She stepped back, needing distance. "I should probably get some work done while Lily's away," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I have a design deadline on Monday." Connor nodded, accepting the shift in mood without comment. "Of course. I should get going anyway." He moved toward the door, but paused with his hand on the knob. "Would it be okay if I stopped by tomorrow? Maybe brought dinner when Lily gets back?" The offer was tempting. Another evening of normalcy, of adult conversation and shared laughter. But a warning voice in Vanessa's head reminded her that Connor was Ethan's brother, that his kindness, while genuine, was likely temporary. When he returned to Chicago next week, she would face her new reality alone. "That's really nice of you," she said carefully, "but I think I need to start figuring out how to handle the transitions with Lily on my own." Understanding flickered in Connor's eyes. "Of course, but if you change your mind, just call. I'm only a few minutes away." After he left, Vanessa tried to focus on her work, a rebranding project for a local boutique, but her thoughts kept drifting. To Ethan and Lily at the aquarium, to Connor's unexpected visit and the comfort of his embrace, to the divorce papers still sitting unsigned in her desk drawer. By evening, restlessness drove her to call her mother. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her voice instantly warming at the sound of her daughter's. "I was just thinking about you, sweetheart. How are you holding up?" Vanessa sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know, Mom. Some moments I think I'm okay, and the next, I can barely breathe." Eleanor sighed, the sound heavy with maternal concern. "That's normal, darling. Your heart is broken. It takes time to heal." "How much time?" Vanessa asked, hating how childlike she sounded. "Because right now, I can't imagine ever feeling normal again." "Oh, Vanessa," Eleanor's voice softened. "I wish I could tell you. When your father left," she paused, and Vanessa could hear the echo of old pain in her mother's voice. Eleanor rarely spoke about Vanessa's father, who had abandoned them when Vanessa was just 8 years old. It felt like the end of everything, but it wasn't. "We rebuilt. We found happiness again. You will too." "I know," Vanessa said, though the words felt hollow. "It's just so hard, Mom, especially with Lily. You should have seen her face light up when Ethan came to pick her up this morning. She adores him, and he's just walking away." "He's walking away from you, not her," Eleanor corrected gently. "And as much as it hurts, you have to separate those relationships in your mind, for Lily's sake." They talked for another hour, the conversation shifting from the emotional to the practical. Eleanor offering advice about child support and custody arrangements based on her own experience. By the time they hung up, Vanessa felt marginally more centered, anchored by her mother's steady wisdom. That night, she finally forced herself to read through the divorce papers, making notes of questions for her attorney. The clinical language describing the dissolution of their marriage, irreconcilable differences, and equitable division of assets felt surreal, as if describing strangers rather than the life she and Ethan had built together. On Sunday afternoon, watching from the window as Ethan's car pulled into the driveway, Vanessa took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. She had decided on a new approach: cool civility. No more tears, no more pleading. If Ethan was determined to destroy their family, she would at least maintain her dignity through the process. Lily burst through the door first, chattering excitedly about the sea turtles and the touch tank where she'd held a starfish. Ethan followed more slowly, his expression guarded as he met Vanessa's gaze. "She was perfect," he said, setting Lily's bag on the entryway bench. "We had a great time." "I'm glad," Vanessa replied evenly. Lily, why don't you take Hoot upstairs and get your coloring books? You can show me the pictures you drew at the aquarium. When Lily had bounded up the stairs, Ethan shifted uncomfortably. I was hoping we could talk about the papers. Have you had a chance to look them over? I have, Vanessa said, maintaining her composure with effort. I'll have some questions for my attorney, but overall, the terms seem fair. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. How could any of this be fair? Ethan seemed surprised by her businesslike tone. That's good. The sooner we can file, the sooner we can move forward. Move forward, Vanessa repeated, a flicker of anger breaking through her carefully constructed facade. Is that what you're doing with her? Moving forward? Ethan's face hardened. I told you there's no one else. Right. Vanessa crossed her arms. And I told you I don't believe you. They stared at each other, the gulf between them widening with each passing second. Ethan broke first, looking away. I should go, he said, moving toward the door. I'll call during the week to talk to Lily. Daddy's leaving? Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, her face falling. But I wanted to show you my pictures. Ethan's expression softened as he looked up at his daughter. I'll see them next time, Princess. Daddy has to go now. After a tearful goodbye from Lily, Ethan left, and Vanessa found herself once again picking up the pieces of her daughter's confusion and disappointment. Later that evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, the little girl looked up with solemn eyes. Mommy, is Uncle Connor coming tomorrow? The question caught Vanessa off guard. No, sweetheart. Uncle Connor has to go home to Chicago soon. But I like when he's here, Lily said, hugging Hoot to her chest. He makes you smile. And he doesn't have to go to work like Daddy always did. Out of the mouths of babes. Vanessa smoothed her daughter's hair back from her forehead, considering how to respond. Uncle Connor is very nice to spend time with us, but his home and work are in Chicago. Can we go to Chicago? Lily asked, her eyelids growing heavy with sleep. Maybe someday, Vanessa murmured, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. Sweet dreams, my love. As Lily drifted off to sleep, Vanessa remained seated on the edge of the bed, her daughter's innocent observations echoing in her mind. Connor did make her smile. His presence in their home over the past few days had been like a life raft in stormy seas. Unexpected, but desperately needed. Her phone vibrated with a text message. Expecting Ethan with some forgotten detail about Lily's weekend, she was surprised to see Connor's name instead. Hope Lily had a good time. If you need anything, I'm here. Flight home isn't until Wednesday. Vanessa stared at the message for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the screen. Against her better judgment, she typed a reply. Lily was asking about you. Would you like to come for dinner tomorrow? Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and company. His response was immediate. I'd like that very much. Setting her phone aside, Vanessa felt that same confusing flutter from earlier, a lightness in her chest that had no place in the midst of her grief and anger. And yet, it persisted, a tiny spark of warmth in the cold reality of her new existence. The weeks that followed settled into an uneasy rhythm. Ethan took Lily every weekend, returning her Sunday evenings with tightly controlled exchanges that never lasted more than a few minutes. The divorce proceedings continued with mechanical efficiency. Meetings with attorneys, financial disclosures, discussions about holiday schedules that made Vanessa's heart ache with their finality. Connor had returned to Chicago as planned, but his absence was softened by daily texts and frequent video calls, not just with Lily, who delighted in showing him her latest artwork or preschool projects, but with Vanessa as well. Late-night conversations after Lily was asleep had become a lifeline, a space where Vanessa could voice her fears and frustrations without judgment. I signed the papers today, she told him one evening in early November, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, her laptop screen illuminating her tired face. It feels so official now. Connor's expression was somber. How are you doing with that? Vanessa took a sip of wine, considering the question. Honestly, part of me is relieved. Like I'm finally accepting what's happening instead of fighting it. She traced the rim of her glass with her finger. But then, there's this other part that still can't believe this is my life now. It won't always feel this raw, Connor said gently. I know that probably doesn't help much right now. Actually, it does. She offered a small smile. Your perspective has kept me sane these past few weeks. Their friendship had deepened with each conversation, evolving into something Vanessa couldn't quite define. Connor had become her confidant, her support, her connection to a version of herself that existed before Ethan's betrayal. Someone who could laugh, who had opinions about books and movies, who wasn't defined solely by her grief. I'm coming back to town next weekend, Connor said, changing the subject. The Peterson project needs some on-site revisions. Vanessa felt a flutter of anticipation. Lily will be thrilled. She asks about you every day. Just Lily? He asked, his tone light, but his eyes serious. The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken complications. Vanessa looked away from the screen, suddenly unsure of how to navigate this shifting terrain. I've missed you too, she admitted finally, meeting his gaze again. More than I probably should. Connor was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Vanessa, A noise from upstairs interrupted whatever he was about to say. Lily's voice called out, Mommy? I should go, Vanessa said quickly, relief and disappointment mingling at the interruption. Lily's having nightmares again. Connor nodded, understanding. Call me tomorrow? After comforting Lily back to sleep, Vanessa lay awake in her own bed, replaying the conversation with Connor. What had he been about to say? And more importantly, what was she feeling for this man who had become so unexpectedly central to her life? The question followed her through the week, distracting her during client calls and design sessions. By Friday, with Connor's arrival imminent, Vanessa had worked herself into a state of nervous anticipation. She changed outfits twice before settling on a casual sweater and jeans, applied makeup for the first time in weeks, and spent extra time smoothing her dark hair into soft waves. You look pretty, Mommy, Lily observed as Vanessa checked her reflection one last time. Are we going somewhere special? Uncle Connor is coming for dinner, remember? Vanessa replied, trying to sound casual. And thank you, sweetie. It's nice to dress up sometimes. The doorbell rang at 6:30, sending a jolt of electricity through Vanessa's body. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to find Connor standing on the porch, a bouquet of autumn flowers in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. Hi, she said softly, suddenly shy under his appreciative gaze. Hi yourself, he replied, his smile warming his eyes. These are for you. He handed her the flowers. And this, he produced a small paper bag from his coat pocket, is for my favorite niece. Lily, who had been hovering behind Vanessa, darted forward. What is it, Uncle Connor? Open it and see, he suggested, bending down to her level. Inside was a snow globe featuring the Chicago skyline. Lily shook it with delight, watching the glittering flakes swirl around the miniature buildings. It's where you live. That's right, Connor said, ruffling her hair affectionately. So you can remember me when I'm not here. The evening passed with an easy warmth that felt both new and familiar. They ate lasagna, Lily chattering about preschool and her weekend plans with her father. After dinner, Connor helped with dishes, while Lily set up a board game in the living room, insisting both adults play before her bedtime. Mommy gets the blue pieces 'cause blue is her favorite, and you get the green ones 'cause that's your favorite, Lily instructed, organizing the game pieces with serious concentration. Connor raised an eyebrow at Vanessa. Green is my favorite. How did she know that? We may have looked at your Instagram feed once or twice, Vanessa admitted with a small laugh. Lily noticed you wear a lot of green. The game ended with Lily's triumphant victory, which both adults suspected might have involved some creative rule interpretations. After bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, Vanessa returned to the living room to find Connor examining the framed photos on the mantel, most featuring Lily, but some including Ethan. Painful reminders Vanessa hadn't yet been able to remove. I should probably take these down, she said, joining him by the fireplace. It's just, Lily likes seeing them. Connor turned to her, his expression gentle. You don't have to explain or apologize. This is all still fresh. Vanessa nodded, grateful for his understanding. Would you like some coffee? Or more wine? Wine, I think, he replied, following her to the kitchen. It's been a long week. They settled on the couch, a careful distance between them as Vanessa poured 2 glasses. The conversation flowed easily. Connor's new project in Chicago, Vanessa's expanding client list, a movie they'd both seen recently. But beneath the casual topics, tension hummed like an electrical current, amplified when their hands accidentally brushed as Connor passed her the wine bottle. Vanessa, he said finally, setting his glass down and turning to face her fully. I need to say something, and I'm not sure how to start. Her heart quickened. Just say it. These past weeks, talking to you every day, he paused, searching for words. I've developed feelings for you that go beyond friendship, beyond family. His eyes held hers steadily. And I need to know if I'm alone in this, because if I am, I'll never mention it again. The confession hung in the air between them, both terrifying and exhilarating. Vanessa set her own glass down with a slightly trembling hand. You're not alone, she whispered. But Connor, this is so complicated. You're Ethan's brother. I'm still technically married. There's Lily to consider. I know. He reached for her hand, enveloping it in his larger one. Believe me, I've thought about all of that. Probably more than is healthy. A small, self-deprecating smile crossed his face. But I can't deny what I'm feeling, and I don't think you can either. Vanessa looked down at their joined hands, the physical connection sending warmth up her arm and into her chest. I'm scared, she admitted, of what this means, of what people will think, of getting hurt again. I understand, Connor said softly, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, and I'm not asking for any decisions tonight. I just needed you to know. When she looked up, his face was closer than before, his eyes questioning. Vanessa felt herself leaning forward, drawn by a pull that seemed both inevitable and impossible. Their lips met in a kiss so gentle it was barely a touch, a whispered question rather than a declaration. Vanessa pulled back first, her emotions a tumultuous storm of desire, guilt, and confusion. I'm sorry, she said automatically. I shouldn't have— Don't apologize, Connor interrupted, his voice low. Not for that. Not unless you regret it. Did she regret it? The question echoed in her mind as she searched his face. This man who had been her rock when her world collapsed, who made her laugh when she thought she'd forgotten how, who looked at her with a tenderness that made her feel whole again. I don't regret it, she said finally. But I need time, Connor. This is all happening so fast, and I'm still trying to process the end of my marriage. He nodded, releasing her hand reluctantly. Time is something I can give you, as much as you need. The doorbell rang, startling them both. Vanessa glanced at her watch. Nearly 10:30. Who would be calling this late? Expecting someone? Connor asked, straightening his posture as Vanessa stood. No. Unease prickled along her spine as she moved to the door and peered through the peephole. Shock jolted through her system. It's Ethan. Connor was immediately on his feet. Ethan? Why would he? I don't know. Vanessa smoothed her hair nervously, acutely aware of her flushed cheeks and the lingering sensation of Connor's kiss. Maybe something's wrong with his mother, or it's about Lily's pickup tomorrow. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door to find Ethan standing on the porch, shoulders hunched against the November chill. His eyes, usually sharp and focused, were bloodshot and slightly unfocused. Ethan, what are you doing here so late? He didn't answer immediately, his gaze moving past her to where Connor stood in the living room doorway. His expression darkened. Connor, what the hell are you doing here? The belligerent tone set warning bells ringing in Vanessa's head. Ethan, have you been drinking? Answer the question, Connor, Ethan demanded, ignoring Vanessa as he pushed past her into the house. What are you doing in my house with my wife? Connor remained calm, though Vanessa could see tension in the set of his shoulders. I came to visit Lily. and to check on Vanessa. At 10:30 at night, Ethan laughed bitterly. After Lily's been in bed for hours? Try again, brother. Ethan, stop it, Vanessa said firmly, stepping between the brothers. You don't get to barge in here demanding explanations. You gave up that right when you walked out on us. Ethan's attention snapped to her, his eyes narrowing. So that's it? I'm barely gone 2 months and you're already moving on? With my brother? The accusation stung, partly because of the kernel of truth it contained. That's not fair, Vanessa said, struggling to maintain her composure. You left, Ethan. You ended our marriage. What did you expect me to do? Sit here alone forever? I expected some basic loyalty. Ethan's voice rose, his control slipping. From both of you. Loyalty? Connor finally spoke, his tone dangerously quiet. You want to talk about loyalty, Ethan? After what you did to Vanessa and Lily? Ethan stepped toward his brother, hands clenching into fists. You don't know anything about my marriage. I know enough, Connor replied, standing his ground. I know you threw away something precious for reasons you still won't admit to. Mommy, Lily's small voice came from the top of the stairs, stopping all 3 adults in their tracks. She stood in her nightgown, boot clutched to her chest, eyes wide with confusion. Why is everyone yelling? Daddy, you're here. The sight of his daughter seemed to deflate Ethan instantly. He stepped back, running a shaky hand through his hair. Hey, princess, I'm sorry we woke you. Vanessa moved to the stairs, extending her arms. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you back to bed. But Daddy's here, Lily protested, even as she allowed herself to be picked up. And Uncle Connor, too. Daddy just stopped by to say hello, Vanessa explained, her voice carefully neutral. He's leaving now, and it's very late. Uncle Connor will be here in the morning. Shooting a warning glance at both men, she carried Lily back upstairs, her heart pounding with adrenaline and anxiety. It took 15 minutes of gentle reassurance to settle Lily back to sleep, during which Vanessa strained to hear any sounds of confrontation from below. The house remained eerily quiet. When she finally descended the stairs, she found only Connor waiting in the living room. Ethan left, he said, before she could ask. He said he'd call you tomorrow, about Lily. Vanessa sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. What just happened? Connor sat beside her, leaving more space between them than before. I think we just got a taste of how complicated this really is. The understatement pulled a weary laugh from Vanessa. That's one way to put it. She turned to face him, her expression serious. Connor, I meant what I said. I need time. And after tonight, we need to be very careful. For Lily's sake, if nothing else. I agree, he said, though she could see the reluctance in his eyes. Tonight was a mistake in timing, not in feeling. He hesitated before adding, I'm here for as long as you'll have me, Vanessa, in whatever capacity you need. As he prepared to leave, their goodbye was deliberately formal, a brief hug that carefully avoided recreating the intimacy they'd shared earlier. Yet, as Vanessa closed the door behind him, she pressed her fingers to her lips, remembering the gentle pressure of his kiss and the promise it held. Later, lying awake in bed, her phone chimed with a text from Connor. Are you okay? The simple question brought unexpected tears to her eyes. When was the last time someone had asked her that and actually wanted an honest answer? She typed back, Not really, but I will be. His response came quickly. Yes, you will. You're the strongest person I know. Vanessa fell asleep with the phone clutched in her hand, Connor's words echoing in her mind. Stronger than she knew. She had to be, for Lily's sake. And perhaps, she was beginning to realize, for her own as well. 3 months after Ethan's unexpected late-night appearance, Vanessa stood in her kitchen, stirring a pot of homemade chicken soup, Lily's favorite when she was feeling under the weather. The February wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the house that was now legally hers alone. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks earlier, a surprisingly anticlimactic end to 12 years of marriage. Judge Harrison had simply stamped the paperwork, offered a perfunctory, "Good luck to you both," and called the next case. Is it ready yet? Lily called from the living room, her voice nasal from congestion. The winter cold had kept her home from preschool for 3 days, giving Vanessa a crash course in juggling client deadlines with the demands of a sick child. "Almost, sweetie," Vanessa answered, adding a pinch of fresh dill, Eleanor's secret ingredient. Her mother had been a constant source of support through the final stages of the divorce, stepping in to watch Lily during court appearances and offering the wisdom of someone who had walked this path before. As she ladled the steaming soup into Lily's favorite bowl, the one with painted butterflies around the rim, Vanessa caught sight of her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her was different from the one who had stood in this same kitchen 4 months ago, stirring pasta sauce and humming while her world teetered on the edge of collapse. This woman's eyes held a hard-won strength, her shoulders set with a new determination. The pain hadn't disappeared. It still caught her unawares at times, a sudden tightness in her chest when a song or scent triggered memories, but it no longer defined her every waking moment. The doorbell rang just as Vanessa was arranging crackers in the shape of a smiley face beside Lily's soup, a small gesture that never failed to make her daughter giggle despite her stuffy nose. "I'll get it," Lily called, scrambling off the couch despite Vanessa's protests about staying under the blanket. Connor's voice carried from the entryway. "Well, hello there, Ms. Lily. I hear someone has the sniffles." "Uncle Connor?" Lily's excited greeting was punctuated by a small cough. "Did you bring me a present?" Vanessa rounded the corner to find Connor crouched at Lily's level, mock severity on his face as he held a paper bag just out of her reach. "Now, is that how we greet people? By asking for presents?" Lily giggled, shaking her head. "No, we say hello first." She threw her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. "Hello, Uncle Connor." "Much better," he laughed, returning the hug before handing her the bag. "This might help you feel better." Inside was a plush hot water bottle cover shaped like a penguin, which Lily immediately declared was the best thing ever. As she skipped back to her nest of blankets on the couch, Connor turned to Vanessa, his smile softening. "Hi," he said simply, the word carrying more weight than a casual greeting between them now. "Hi yourself," Vanessa replied, echoing their exchange from that pivotal evening 3 months ago. "You didn't have to come over. I know you're busy with the Peterson project." Connor shrugged off his coat, hanging it beside Lily's tiny purple parka. "The contractor can handle today's meetings. Besides," he lowered his voice, glancing toward the living room, "I wanted to see how you were doing." 2 weeks since the divorce was final. Vanessa nodded, appreciating his perceptiveness. "I'm okay. Better than I expected, actually." She led him into the kitchen, where she served 2 more bowls of soup. "It feels like closure, finally. Like I can stop looking back and start looking forward." After Ethan's confrontation that night in November, things had shifted between all of them. Vanessa and Connor had stepped back, agreeing to focus on friendship while she completed her divorce, and they both navigated the complex family dynamics. Connor had taken a short-term apartment in town to oversee his project, allowing him to be present for Lily without creating additional tension. His relationship with Ethan remained strained but civil, both brothers making an effort for Lily's sake. Ethan himself had undergone a transformation of sorts. The day after his drunken appearance, he had called Vanessa as promised, his voice rough with remorse. "I need to tell you something," he had said. "Something I should have told you from the beginning." The confession that followed confirmed what Vanessa had suspected all along. There had been someone else, a colleague at work, married herself, who had convinced Ethan they were soulmates worth destroying 2 families for. The affair had lasted 3 months before Ethan asked for a divorce. 2 weeks later, his lover had changed her mind, deciding to stay with her husband after all, leaving Ethan alone with the wreckage of his choices. "I was a fool," he'd admitted, his voice breaking. "I threw away everything that mattered for someone who didn't care about me half as much as you did." The revelation had brought a strange sense of relief to Vanessa, confirmation that her instincts had been right. that the collapse of her marriage hadn't been some failure on her part, but the result of Ethan's selfish choices. Now, as she and Connor sat across from Lily at the coffee table, watching her slurp soup dramatically between giggles, Vanessa found herself thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. Her career was flourishing. The forced independence of single motherhood had pushed her to take on more clients and raise her rates, resulting in a financial stability she'd never experienced before. Lily, after some initial confusion and regression, had adapted to the new family structure with the remarkable resilience of young children. And then there was Connor. The forced step back from the intensity of that November night hadn't diminished their connection, but deepened it. Daily texts had continued, joined by Sunday dinners when Lily returned from her weekends with Ethan, game nights where the three of them built elaborate blanket forts, and quiet evenings on the porch swing after Lily was asleep, talking about everything and nothing at all. "Mommy, can we watch a movie?" Lily asked, pushing her half-finished bowl away. "The one with the snowman?" "Only if you eat 3 more spoonfuls," Vanessa bargained, falling into the familiar rhythm of motherhood. "And take your medicine after." Connor leaned toward Lily conspiratorially. "I think your mom's being pretty generous. I was going to say 5 more spoonfuls." Lily's eyes widened in mock horror. "No, 3 is enough." But she obediently picked up her spoon, making exaggerated faces at Connor after each bite that had him struggling to maintain his serious expression. Later, with Lily settled between them on the couch, drowsy from cold medicine and captivated by the animated film, Vanessa found herself watching Connor more than the screen. The way he absent-mindedly stroked Lily's hair when she leaned against him. The genuine laugh he gave at the movie's silly jokes. The occasional glance he sent Vanessa's way, warm and patient, and filled with a question neither of them had voiced since that night. When Lily finally drifted off to sleep, head resting on Connor's lap, Vanessa carefully extracted herself from the couch. "I should put her to bed." "Let me," Connor offered, gently lifting the sleeping child. Lily instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck, not waking as he carried her upstairs to her bedroom. Vanessa followed, watching from the doorway, as Connor laid Lily on her bed with practiced ease, tucking Hoot under her arm and pulling the covers up to her chin. He smoothed her hair back, placing a soft kiss on her forehead before straightening up. "You're good at that," Vanessa observed quietly as they moved back into the hallway. "The dad stuff." Connor's expression turned thoughtful. "It comes naturally with her." He hesitated before adding, "She makes it easy to love her." "Like mother? Like daughter?" The words slipped out before Vanessa could reconsider them, hanging in the air between them like a challenge. Connor stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Exactly like that," he murmured, "though nothing about falling in love with you has been easy, Vanessa. Complicated, terrifying, exhilarating. Yes. Easy? No." The admission, the first time either of them had used the word love, sent a tremor through Vanessa's heart. "Connor, I know," he said quickly, understanding her hesitation. "It's still too soon. There's Ethan to consider, and your healing process, and how all of this affects Lily." His hand reached for hers, fingers intertwining. "But I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." Vanessa looked down at their joined hands, then back to his face. "What if I told you I might be ready sooner than either of us expected?" A mixture of hope and caution crossed Connor's features. "I'd say that sounds both wonderful and terrifying." "It does, doesn't it?" Vanessa gave a soft laugh. "But these past months, watching you with Lily, seeing how naturally you fit into our lives." She took a deep breath, gathering courage. "I don't want to wait anymore, Connor. Life is too short and too unpredictable to deny ourselves happiness out of fear." Connor's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle as if she might shatter. "Are you sure? Because I meant what I said. I can wait as long as you need." Instead of answering, Vanessa rose on her tiptoes, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that held none of the hesitation of their first. This kiss spoke of certainty, of a choice made with clear eyes and an open heart. Connor's arms wrapped around her waist, drawing her closer as he deepened the kiss. Months of restrained emotion finally finding expression. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, Connor rested his forehead against hers. "What about Ethan? The family complications?" "We'll figure it out," Vanessa said with newfound confidence. "It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is." 2 weeks later, Vanessa stood in her kitchen once again, this time preparing a small birthday celebration for Lily, 4 years old. It seemed impossible that her tiny baby had grown into the spirited, chattering child, now running excited circuits around the living room in her new party dress. The doorbell rang, and Lily sprinted to answer it. "Daddy's here!" she called, throwing the door open to reveal Ethan standing on the porch, a large wrapped gift in his arms. "Happy birthday, Princess!" he exclaimed, setting the present down to scoop Lily into a hug. His eyes met Vanessa's over their daughter's head, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had reached a fragile peace in recent weeks, focusing on co-parenting rather than rehashing the past. Eleanor arrived next, bearing a homemade cake and birthday wishes. The small gathering settled in the living room, Lily the center of attention as she opened presents with exuberant delight. When the doorbell rang again, Vanessa rose to answer it, knowing who waited on the other side. Connor stood on the porch, a gift bag in one hand, and a nervous expression that softened when he saw her. "How's it going in there?" he asked quietly. "Better than expected," Vanessa replied, stepping aside to let him in. "Ethan's being civil, Mom's being her wonderful self, and Lily's in heaven with all the presents." Connor hesitated at the threshold. "Are you sure about this? The 4 of us together for the first time?" "I'm sure," Vanessa said firmly. "Lily wants all the people she loves here for her birthday. We're adults. We can handle it for a few hours." The atmosphere in the living room tensed momentarily when Connor entered, Ethan's posture stiffening as he watched his brother greet Eleanor and present his gift to an ecstatic Lily. But the tension gradually eased as the afternoon progressed, the focus remaining on Lily's happiness rather than the complicated adult dynamics at play. After cake and ice cream, while Eleanor helped Lily try on the new dress-up costume she'd received, Ethan approached Vanessa in the kitchen. "So," he said quietly, nodding toward the living room where Connor was helping Lily arrange her new toys. "You and my brother. It's serious?" Vanessa met his gaze steadily. "Yes, it is." Ethan nodded, a complex emotion crossing his face that might have been resignation or acceptance, or perhaps a mixture of both. "He's a good man, better than I was to you. This isn't about comparing you two, Ethan," Vanessa said carefully. "What happened between us is separate from what's developing with Connor." "Is it?" Ethan's laugh held no humor. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I threw away the best thing in my life, and my brother was smart enough to recognize what I was too blind to see." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not going to make this difficult, Vanessa. I just want Lily to be happy." "That's what we all want," Vanessa agreed, surprised by the civil turn of the conversation. "And she needs her father in her life. That will never change, regardless of what happens between me and Connor." Later that evening, after Ethan and Eleanor had left, and Lily had finally succumbed to birthday exhaustion, Vanessa and Connor sat on the back porch swing, a comfortable silence between them as they watched stars appear in the darkening sky. "Today went better than I expected," Connor admitted, his arm draped across Vanessa's shoulders. "Ethan was almost gracious." Vanessa nodded, leaning into his warmth. "I think he's finally accepting that his choices had consequences, that life moved on without him." "Does that make you sad?" Connor asked, the question gentle but direct. Vanessa considered this, searching her heart for the truth. "Not sad, exactly. There's a bittersweetness to it. 12 years is a long time to share with someone, but mostly I feel—" She paused, finding the right word. "Free. Free to create a new future instead of mourning the past." Connor's arm tightened around her, his lips pressing against her temple. I like the sound of that future. So do I, Vanessa said softly, turning in his arms to face him, especially if you're in it. 6 months later, on a warm August evening, Vanessa stood in the backyard of her home. Their home now, since Connor had moved in officially 3 months prior. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees, casting a soft glow over the intimate gathering of family and close friends. Lily darted between groups of adults, resplendent in her flower girl dress, proudly showing everyone the ring she'd helped choose. Eleanor approached, champagne flute in hand, her eyes misty with emotion. He's a good man, Vanessa. I see the way he looks at you, like you've hung the moon and stars. He is, Vanessa agreed, her gaze finding Connor across the yard where he chatted with his parents, his laugh carrying through the warm evening air. And he loves Lily like she's his own. That's the real gift, Eleanor said knowingly. Finding someone who not only loves you, but loves your child with equal devotion. She squeezed Vanessa's hand. I'm so proud of you, darling. You've built something beautiful from the ashes. The engagement had been simple and perfect. A quiet moment on the porch swing where they'd shared so many conversations. Connor kneeling before her with Lily, helping by holding the ring box. Both of them asking Vanessa to make their family official. The planning of a small fall wedding was underway, but tonight's gathering was just as important. Their way of celebrating with loved ones, of affirming that happiness could be found in the most unexpected places, often after the greatest pain. As the evening progressed, Vanessa found herself momentarily alone, watching the people she loved most in the world sharing food and laughter under the twilight sky. The ache that had once consumed her had transformed into something else, a tender spot that reminded her of both loss and growth, like a healed bone that occasionally twinges in cold weather, but is ultimately stronger at the broken places. Penny, for your thoughts? Connor's voice broke through her reverie as he appeared at her side, offering a glass of wine. Just counting my blessings, Vanessa replied, accepting both the glass and the kiss he placed on her cheek. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here when you came to check on me that day? Connor shook his head, his expression turning serious. No, but I did know, even then, that you were someone worth waiting for, someone worth fighting for. Uncle Connor? Lily's voice interrupted as she ran toward them, breathless with excitement. Grandma says I can show everyone my dance now. Connor immediately knelt to her level. Well then, we better get everyone's attention, shouldn't we? He scooped her up, settling her on his shoulders as she squealed with delight. Your stage awaits, Princess Lily. As they moved toward the center of the gathering, Lily secure and giggling on Connor's shoulders, the little girl suddenly leaned down to whisper loudly in his ear, I love you, Daddy. The word, spoken for the first time, stopped Connor in his tracks. Vanessa watched as a range of emotions crossed his face. Shock, then tenderness, then a fierce, protective love that brought tears to his eyes. Carefully, he lowered Lily to the ground, kneeling before her. Lily, he said gently, you know I'm not... I know, Lily interrupted, with the confident wisdom of a 4.5-year-old. I have my first daddy who takes me to the aquarium on weekends. But you're my everyday daddy who lives in our house and makes pancakes shaped like animals and checks for monsters under my bed. That's how it works. Connor looked up at Vanessa, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded, her own vision blurring with tears as she mouthed, It's okay. Turning back to Lily, Connor took her small hands in his. I would be honored to be your everyday daddy, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I love you very much, Lily Harper. I know, Lily replied simply, throwing her arms around his neck. That's why I picked you for Mommy. You make her smile all the time. From the perimeter of the gathering, Vanessa caught sight of Ethan, who had arrived late and stood apart from the main group. Their eyes met across the yard, and after a moment's hesitation, he nodded, an acknowledgement, perhaps even a blessing. Then he turned, and slipped away into the gathering darkness, leaving Vanessa to her newfound happiness. Later that night, with Lily asleep upstairs and the house quiet after the last guests had departed, Vanessa and Connor slow danced in the kitchen to music only they could hear, her head resting against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. "Thank you," she whispered, the words inadequate for the depth of her gratitude. "For what?" Connor asked, his hand tracing gentle circles on her back. "For finding me when I was lost, for loving Lily, for showing me that an ending can also be a beginning." Connor tilted her face up to his eyes reflecting all the love she felt in her own heart. "Thank you for being brave enough to try again, for letting me into your life, for showing me what family really means." As they swayed together in the moonlight streaming through the kitchen window, Vanessa thought about the journey that had brought them here, the pain, the tears, the slow rebuilding, the unexpected joy. 4 months ago, standing in a courthouse as her marriage officially ended, she could never have imagined the fullness of the life she would find on the other side of grief. "I love you," she said simply, the words still new enough to feel like precious gifts each time they were exchanged. "And I love you," Connor replied, sealing the promise with a kiss that spoke of home and hope, and all the tomorrows stretching before them, a family built not from obligation, but from choice, stronger for having weathered the storm together. Outside, stars wheeled overhead in the summer sky, constant and bright, illuminating not just what had been lost, but all that had been found along the way. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.